You know, the amount of likes I used to get on social media used to have an incredible amount of power over me. I basically treated them like gods because they almost entirely defined my sense of self-worth, and for that matter, my ranking on the social leaderboard. God forbid I'd have 20 less likes than somebody else, because that's all it took for me to feel wildly inadequate and withdrawn. Hey, maybe you can relate to this. I'm guessing that you probably can because you clicked on this video. And you can only wonder how you end up in such a state. And for that, I've kind of gone back into the past and looked at the lead up as to how this thing formed over time. And I've put together a simple flow chart as to how it can happen. And although this is the way it happened for me, I think this is far more universal than I think, and this could be definitely applied to everyone to some degree, but the parts of it might shift around in their order. And what you'll see is that this isn't just about numbers, this is actually about popularity in general. The first event to consider is that an idolized reality forms at some point, where high popularity seems to be misdiagnosed as the best experience. Because we essentially overpromise on what it might deliver in a way that exploits our own feelings of inadequacy. And this idea of high popularity being this perfect world seems to only grow as we go down each step in the flowchart. We're basically saying that the higher we go up in our popularity, the happier we'll be. And this is a really hasty and misinformed conclusion. And this takes on a very all or nothing or black and white flavor. Of course, in reality, it's not quite that simple. The next thing that might happen is we might start creating new associations. If we're talking about numbers in particular, high amounts of numbers surely correlate to high amounts of popularity. The more likes you get on your photos, surely the more popular you are. But there are many factors which go into how many likes a post gets, and it's not so black and white. From a non-business point of view, likes have very inherently little value. They're like empty calories, but when they do have value, it's often not real because we've built an emotional dependence on them. If you really care about them that much, then it's not likely the likes you're wanting, it's just to feel at peace with yourself again, because the fear of staying in an assumed inferior identity has taken over. From there we may start to make the dreaded comparisons of taking your number and someone else's, and essentially confirming to yourself that you must be lesser, which of course brings about a sense of inadequacy because we sense the difference between where we are and where they are, and this can hurt. And it's scary to feel as though you rank lower than somebody else because you feel as though you deserve better and you can't quite understand why you're placing lower. I don't know how relatable this is, but for me, I had this belief that if I was only going to have one life, I needed it to be the best life possible, so to speak. So if I was anything lesser than what I perceived to be something of a great experience in life, then I would have a serious aversion to that. In a way, I wouldn't settle for anything less than the best. But it was that exact thinking which created the black hole. Of course, I didn't have to go out there and chase absurd levels of popularity, but I felt like I was really missing out on something because all of the immediate feelings of inadequacy proved it to be something that was important. So the way that we decide how good it would be to be at some arbitrary level of high popularity is directly informed by how much we're feeling in the moment. If that sense of divide is bringing about a serious insecurity, inadequacy, and bringing about serious levels of desire within you to reach those higher levels, then all of these experiences kind of reinforce the fact that it must be an important thing to reach those levels. And moreover, when you do reach those levels, it's going to be an amazing experience. It's going to be the giant breakthrough that you think it is. But all of this is like a game we're playing in our own heads. It almost doesn't exist outside of us. So in that way, it's just something we've created as an individual, but can't be said as a universal experience. And once we sense this divide and this strong desire to pursue these higher levels, the next thing is to, of course, pursue them. We've learned that it's an important thing and that we have to chase it because we've basically gaslit ourselves into now seeing this outcome is a really important thing and it's going to bring about X results. And now the whole game begins of trying to get there. This is where we can try to socially engineer our way up the ladder by creating inauthentic relationships with groups of people or individuals that you think are higher than you in the hierarchy. Because authentic relationships, of course, don't come about when one person is just trying to use the other for a jump in status. But that is exactly what you might be feeling compelled to do. Heck, I tried it for a while and it sucked. And this is exactly where a lot of the fakery on social media comes from. It's people trying to do exactly that, but instead of doing it in person, they're doing it online. What photo could I post to impress this person? What would they like? What would they think of me if I did this compared to this? You know, it's all that type of thinking. And to me, it's a giant waste of time, but so much emphasis is put on it in particularly secondary school, because those are the years when we are seriously under the guise of it the most. And at this point, this chasing can simply go on forever unless it's challenged and you figure out, hey, I've been pulled into this world where I'm no longer being myself anymore and I'm living to impress others, and it's a waste of time. The person who doesn't need to impress anyone kind of puts their flag in the ground and says, this is who I am and I don't care if anyone else is going to resonate with that or not. And I think a serious power comes in that. I feel like only in the last 3 years or so I've really started to pull myself out of this because I'm not reinforcing those patterns anymore. But the longer this goes on for and the longer it keeps being reinforced, the stronger the whole system becomes. We keep on feeling inadequate, and each time we feel inadequate, it's like a confirmation bias of the fact that this is something important and we do need to keep pushing to keep raising ourselves higher and higher and higher. So a question now to ask is, why do we care about this so much as a collective? Why is competition such a core of the way that we live our lives? Well, it turns out this is no accident, because back in the day when we lived in a tribe, the highest value members of that tribe tended to have access to the best resources in the tribe, and therefore had the best survival rates. They basically gained preferential access because of their status. And it was also about not being left behind by the tribe, because if we were to disband from the tribe and need to survive on our own, chances of survival may have gone down drastically. So put simply, our relationship with others really determines the chances of survival. But in the modern day, this isn't so much about survival, because if we aren't wildly popular, we're not suddenly going to die. Of course not. But those parts of our brain never left, and because they are so primitive and so hardwired, they act first before we've even had a chance to think about it ourselves. So that is one of the main drivers to attain as many likes as possible, because it's the exact same thing at play. Back in the day, we didn't have a digital leaderboard which could tell us exactly where we place in terms of our social rank in the local group of friends and beyond around us. And it's only in recent years that we've had this, and I don't think it's done much good for us. It's taken those same survival mechanisms that were useful in the tribal days and have exaggerated them, and is making us feel worse than ever. So hopefully now you have a little bit more background as to why we start to place so much importance on these numbers and let them over-represent us. There is more to be said, but I feel like this is enough for one video, so feel free to join me a week from when this video is posted, where we will talk about how to not let these numbers define you anymore. Because we have the background now, we know how it happens, but now we just simply need to learn how to push them away and feel a sense of freedom from them. So I hope you can join me then, and I appreciate your time as always.